I'm not my career, I'm not my job, I'm not my dissertation, I'm not my wins, I'm not my success, I'm not my money, I'm not my I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. That's not my quote, that's Teilhard de Chardin, but I understood what that really meant. And I realized that while I may have quote unquote lost everything, what I had, what remained was the love of my husband, the love of my children, the love of my family, the love of my friends. And I realized then and there that love is all there is. That's the only thing that you take with you when you go. And that's the only thing that slips through the eye of the needle with you. Nothing else. And when I realized that and felt it, it wasn't a thought, it was a realization through my entire being in my bones. I realized I would have missed the whole meaning of life, the whole point of life, had I died on that pavement that day. I would have died, I would say, not an awakened being. And I would say that I am now because I really believe love is all there is. So,
hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Thrive and Achieve with your host, Dr. Matt Markel. Thrive and Achieve is the only podcast where professionals help professionals to succeed in career and wealth. Now, here's your host, Dr. Matt Markel.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Thrive and Achieve, where professionals help professionals thrive in their career and achieve financial success. Today, I am super excited to introduce Susan Filan. I met Susan recently through a mastermind group that we're both in, and we hit it off right away. She's got an amazing story of career growth, determination in adversity, and finding the joy in our lives and the love that connects us all. Susan is a former prosecutor and the Senior Legal Analyst for MSNBC. She has prosecuted cold case murders, defended a client on death row, and battled power players when everything was on the line. But her greatest trial and most profound transformation came after a near-fatal accident, and we're going to deep dive on that here in just a little bit. But that was her ultimate wake-up call. Today, Susan blends legal grit, neuroscience, and spiritual insight all together as a truly inspiring keynote speaker and life strategist. Susan, welcome to Thrive and Achieve.
thank you, Dr. Matt. What an intro. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I am so excited. This has been one of the highlights of my week for me, having you here for a conversation. So I talked a little bit about your professional journey, but let's go a little bit deeper on that. Tell me what got you to where you are today, what originally drew you to legal work, and are there any lessons from that that you're still using today?
So many. Well, first of all, this is a little known fact, but I was an anthropologist before I was a lawyer. And that was my true original love, the science of human understanding. And if you think about it, every species behaves the same way. Like rats don't speak different languages or do their hair in different ways or cook in different ways. But human beings, even though we're all one species, differentiate across the globe. So I was very curious about that. What makes us tick and why do we differentiate and what are the common denominators? Well, I come from a family of lawyers. My dad's a judge. My uncle's a judge. My great uncle's a judge. It just goes on and on and on. And eventually, the anthropologist got the hook, and it was time to come home to the family biz. And that's eventually and ultimately what I did. So it really wasn't my first choice, and it wasn't my original true love, but it turned out I was really good at it. And I think it's because it's in my blood. And, I grew up sitting at the knee of legal giants. I mean, really, my family was legal royalty, if you will. So when I started practicing law, I came at it with a true heart for justice, and I really wanted to speak up for people that couldn't speak for themselves. And I started at legal aid, which is being a free lawyer to people that wouldn't otherwise get one or could afford one. And I fought really, really hard every single day. I mean, I went into that courtroom on a daily basis, swinging as hard as I could without any concern for my own personal safety. I would say things to the court that really got me a lot of attention quickly and early on. And I got picked up by a private law firm, and I was groomed for, the big time. And that was kind of the beginning of my legal career.
That's so exciting. The way that we by osmosis pick up things as a child in that from our families is so important. It's the that's why you see your lawyers having lawyers as children, people in real estate having that, because you pick up so many nuances on how to view the world and just the how to view the world from that lens. It's so interesting. I find that more and more interesting. Why do people? Because it's not really, I don't think, in our bloodline. It's more of like what we picked up from a nurture standpoint from the people around us.
Yeah, it was deeply seated in my unconscious, and I just knew how to advocate and how to fight and how to push hard. And I was gritty and determined, and I really cared. I think that was an important and key ingredient. I was taught from a very early age, if you take the oath and you pass that bar and you step into the well of the courtroom, it is not for yourself. It is really to serve your client or your cause.
That's that lack of self-centeredness, I think, is true in a lot of people that are very successful, that really focus on others. Okay, this show is called Thrive in Your Career, Achieve Financial Success. When you think about thriving and achieving, what's that look like in Susan Filan's life right now?
Well, it's very different now than how it looked early on and, even mid-career. I had a wake-up call, and you could call it a tragic accident, you could call it a near fatal accident, but, toward the later part of my career, I was already in a career pivot. And I wanted to step out from really, one-on-one representation, one client at a time. And I wanted to do more cause work. And I went back to law school 30 years after I got my JD. And I got a LLM, which is a Master of Laws in Indigenous Peoples Law and Policy. And I was the research scholar for the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and traveled with him up to Alaska and saw firsthand what's happening with climate change and Indigenous people at the top of the world. I participated in some federal Indian law cases, and then I began my doctorate, and I was asked to be a law professor, and this was all online, thank you, COVID. And so I was already pivoting out of what I had done for, 30 plus years, and thought that I had really found my new calling and my new way forward. I was going to be a litigator, but, nationally and sometimes internationally. I was going to be a law professor. I imagined that I was going to write. And I'd finished all my coursework for my doctorate, and I'd gotten my research proposal approved, which meant I was about to start writing. I was maybe less than a year away from getting it. And I was in downtown Westport, Connecticut, where I'm from. And I was with my youngest child. It was their 21st birthday that day. And I stepped off the curb into a crosswalk, and I heard a thump and I heard a thud. And I had no idea it was me. I never saw the car hit me. And the next thing I knew, I had hit my head going down, and I was lying flat on the pavement looking up at the sky. And then I was above my body looking down at myself. And I heard a voice inside my head say, I'm dead. And then I heard my voice say, am I dead? I didn't want to be dead. I was hoping I wasn't dead. I thought I was dead. And I heard a first responder say, oh, it's not a fatality. They thought I was dead. Anyway, I did a body scan, and I could see that I was alive and I was in my body. And I wasn't sure if I was hurt or just embarrassed. When you trip in front of everybody and you feel like a fool. I wasn't sure if it was that or I was hurt. And I finished my body scan, and I realized I was not going anywhere. I couldn't move. I wasn't getting up. I was very, very seriously hurt. I didn't know how badly. I knew I was alive, but I didn't know if it was fatal. I had no way to assess it, but all I could be aware of was that I couldn't see my kid, and I kept screaming, help my child, help my child. And people were looking for a little kid under a tire of a car, thinking that my kid had been hit as well. My kid's name is Hallie, and Hallie adopted both of my children from China. So Hallie is Chinese. Hallie doesn't look like me, and Hallie was actually behind me. So nobody figured who Hallie was, but Hallie was behind me with their hands on my shoulder. And Hallie figured out real quick what was going on, and Hallie raised their hand and said, that would be me. I'm the kid. So once I knew Hallie was safe, I could scream because then the pain hit me. And long story short, ambulance, 5 surgeries, had to learn to walk again completely from scratch. Was in a wheelchair, had to get ramps, the whole thing. Took about 2 years, but my career pivot was over. My Etch-a-Sketch was erased. And I mean my whole Etch-a-Sketch, my whole career, my whole life. I was stripped down to my studs. What I was reduced to was a person alive and breathing, and that was about it. And that's what my wake-up call was, and it was basically that I'm not my career, I'm not my job, I'm not my dissertation, I'm not my wins, I'm not my success, I'm not my money, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. That's not my quote, that's Teilhard de Chardin, but I understood what that really meant. And I realized that while I may have, quote unquote, lost everything, what I had, what remained was the love of my husband, the love of my children, the love of my family, the love of my friends. And I realized then and there that love is all there is. That's the only thing that you take with you when you go. And that's the only thing that slips through the eye of the needle with you. Nothing else. And when I realized that, and felt it wasn't a thought, it was a realization through my entire being in my bones. I realized I would have missed the whole meaning of life, the whole point of life, had I died on that pavement that day. I would have died, I would say, not an awakened being. And I would say that I am now because I really believe love is all there is. So what does my definition of thrive look like today? What does my definition of success look like today? It looks like I love my life every day. I'm grateful for my life every day. I'm grateful to love. I'm grateful to give love, receive love, feel love. And everything I do now is for love and about love and from love. And that is my thrive now is deep peace, intense gratitude, profound joy, and a love of life and a love of my life.
Wow. So, oh my gosh. Is there a way that someone can feel that? Because it sounds like it's not something that you think that you're like, oh, I'm going to start thinking more lovingly. I'm going to think more about gratitude. Do you know of a way that someone can get that feeling without having to go through maybe something as, um, as intensive as the accident that you went through? What's a trick because and the reason I ask this is the older I get and the more people I talk to, I start realizing that we are all connected. We're all part of not to get too woo-woo, but we're all part of the same thing. We're all part of the same consciousness
Energy.
and energy, right? And if we can get out of our egocentric selves a little bit more and into that connectedness a little bit more, then I think that would make not only our lives better, our success better, our interactions with others better. It would help everybody, no matter what stage of life you're in your career, in your when you're still grinding it out. That mindset of the connectedness and the mindset of love would be something that I think would just enable. It'd be like a superpower for all of us. And so that's is there a way that you can think of where
Yeah.
we can get closer to that without having to step out in front of a car?
Yeah, and I hope you don't. I mean, that's really why I keynote now is, I did it for you. Really, I'm trying to spare you that wake-up call. I'm basically saying leap before you're pushed. You do it voluntarily, don't get drafted. But, you say, is it woo? Well, I've been reading quantum physics and neuroscience, and what, quantum physics says in super layperson terms, because I'm not a scientist and it's my best attempt to understand it. But if you boil everything down to its tiniest subatomic particle, it's energy. I mean, literally it's energy. And I don't mean that in a woo way. I mean, it's waves, it's frequencies. That's what we are. So I'm the same wave that you are. We are literally made of the same frequency, the same energy. So everything in the world is interconnected. And, neuroscience basically says that your brain isn't stuck the way it is. It's not concrete, it's moldable clay. And so when you start thinking in new ways, think about a like a bowling lane, and you keep throwing that ball down the same lane time after time after time, it's going to go in the same place. But if you create a new lane and you throw a bowling ball down a new lane, you're going to create a new groove. And that's what we're doing in our brains. So how do you get grateful? How do you feel deep peace? How do you feel love, 1 minute at a time, one day at a time? You become aware of the energy or the frequency that you carry. If you're vibrating at the frequency of anxiety or fear or anger, that is going to be your experience. If you change yourself energetically, the way you vibrate, like a tuning fork, change the dial on your radio. Radio is all frequencies. Tune into a different station, tune into deep peace and joy and love. And I learned to do it literally. I know it sounds so cliche, but I learned to do it through my breath, because lying there in the amount of pain that I was in, not knowing if I was going to lose a leg or a foot, I really had total surrender. I had zero control. I couldn't argue. I couldn't appeal. I couldn't do a closing argument. It was out of my hands. And what I did, because it was the only thing I could do, was breathe. And I realized, oh my God, I am not making my lungs breathe. I am not making my heart beat. This is happening for me. This is the gift that I almost lost. I mean, my ticket was almost punched. Yet here I am. Yeah, I'm in excruciating pain and I'm in uncertainty. My exercise is erased and I don't know what my career is and I'm in white space and blah, 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 blah. But I have my breath and I have my heartbeat, and I focused on that and I felt it and I concentrated on it, and it started to expand me out and expand me out and expand me out. And it brought me peace and gratitude and joy and love. And so I started doing it more and I started doing it more. And then, of course, I started reading about it. And I went on this quest, which is how I started reading about quantum physics and neuroscience and spirituality and everything that they know in the East for thousands and thousands of years. We're just proving it now with modern science in the West. It's like, it's real. It's true. So that's one way that I figured it out. And I realized that if I could change myself into this deep peace and this place of gratitude, not manufactured, but real. It was like my body was manufacturing it. We could change the world one peaceful person at a time. I mean, world change through personal peace.
Wow. I think, one of the things that I've seen more and more is as we look at science, we know that something works long before we know how or why something works. Right. So we see that, hey, when the sky gets dark during the day, there's a good chance that rains are going to come. We observe that phenomena long before we know why that is. Well, it's accumulation of moisture in an unstable air pattern, blah blah blah, whatever the
Yeah, we
weather.
see the patterns.
Yeah, so we know that something works long before we know how or why it works. And I think that we're seeing that, and what I'm personally very glad that as a society here in the West that we are moving more towards is this blending of the the mental, spiritual, as well as the physical healing of things. The For so long it was like, oh, you've got a knee problem, we should go to a knee specialist or an orthopedic surgeon. If you have a stomach problem, you should go to a gastrointestinal person on that. But they may say like, okay, well, here, what you should do is you should take some Pepcid and take some Tums. Okay, well, but are they addressing the bigger issue? Are they even addressing the fact that, hey, I like to eat spicy food right before bedtime? Well, maybe that's a lifestyle change that you could address, and that would help make things a little bit better. Also, if you feel these feelings of pain and anxiety and so forth, maybe it's more on the mental, more on the spiritual side than on things that that are just related to the physical. So the fact that these are all connected, even just as an example, we see now more and more the relationship between something as simple as flossing your teeth and things like brain disease and things like mental decline, Alzheimer's, dementia, things like that. Who would have thought that your teeth and the guy, we go to the dentist, we're not even sure if that's a doctor. No, he's a doctor, of course, but it's a different sort of thing. It's we go to a dentist instead of the great brain scientist. But they're all related. And then the more and more we get into the fact that more things touch other things than we even think possible, the more it'll open our minds and allow us to make the better connections, allow us to be more open in how we view the world, how we view science, how we view our interactions with each other, how we view business, how we view sales, how we view every single thing that we do.
I love this coming from you, the engineer, the scientist. It's fantastic validation, and I'm a lawyer. I'm evidence-based. They say, leap in the net will appear. And I'm like, hell no. I want to see the net. I want to know that you've got insurance. Let me see your policy, make sure it's in effect. I'd like to know that we're talking about things that are proven and true and evidence-based. And I think, to hear this coming from you is really exciting.
It gets to I'm very evidence-based as well, but also the realizing that there are alternate hypotheses that we have not yet been exposed to the data on that could exist. So that's the thing, is like there's a common fallacy. It's one of the big biases. We have like confirmation bias, affinity bias, all these different biases. Well, one of the ones that I really like is the acronym WYSATI, WYSATI. What you see is all there is.
Mm.
And when we think about things like if you're ever watching like a detective show or something like that on television, we're watching Only Murders in the Building now, which is just fantastic, by the way. The if you watch that, you kind of see the plot unfold, and like, oh, it must be this person here. They're the killer. Or it must be that person here. Well, that's because those are the only people in the plot that you've been exposed to so far. So as far as what you see, those characters on screen is all there is. But then you realize, like, oh no, this person actually had a brother whose friend was the one who was the killer. And that's not exposed to like the last episode or the penultimate episode. So we have to really keep our minds open that it's easy to fall prey into what you see as all there is. And
Yeah, like
when
the
we
tip
start
of an iceberg.
Exactly. And we start thinking about like the way to approach this, even as a very evidence-based engineer or a very evidence-based member of the legal profession, is to realize that there are other things out there that could exist as possibilities for us. We just haven't been exposed to any of the data on those yet.
Mm-hmm. Yet.
Exactly. And we're starting to see it now.
Stay with us. We'll be right back to Thrive and Achieve. If you're looking for more information about how to help W-2 employees, check out the Amazon #1 bestseller, Anti-Preneur. It's available on Kindle and now in paperback. Now back to the show.
So I want to go back just for a second. You had been this successful litigator. Now you're making this move towards getting your doctorate, and what precipitated that move? Because that's a big career pivot for you.
Yeah, well, I'd been a trial lawyer for, I want to think, like about 30 years, I think. I pretty much stood in the well of the courtroom on a daily basis for, year after year after year. And there's a lot of intensity with that, a lot of pressure with that, a lot of stress with that, and a lot of responsibility. Somebody's putting their life in your hands, not the same way, as if you're a brain surgeon, but, if it's a criminal case, it's their liberty. If it's a family case, it's their future, their children, their money, their career in some ways. So it's a lot of pressure, a lot of burden, a lot of responsibility. And I was starting to feel the toll of that, but I was also wondering, is this why I'm here? Was this why I was born at this time on this planet? And I felt that there were larger causes, larger issues, larger problems that were in need of being addressed. And because I was originally an anthropologist and I had a lot of understanding of Indigenous issues, Native American issues, I felt that that would be a really great way to marry my first career with my second career. And it felt in some ways like I was an anthropologist and a lawyer, and I really liked that, and I really enjoyed it. But it was very mission driven, it was very cause driven, and I loved being an academic again. I loved learning. I loved teaching. I loved the exchange of ideas. There was so much about it that was so attractive to me. And it felt like retirement compared to, litigating. Getting a doctorate felt like a vacation.
The I kind of I see that not in the exact instantiation that you have, but that idea is like you've done something very really well, and you start thinking like, how can I make a larger impact,
Right.
right? Or how can I bring this other aspect of my life from before into something? I have a friend in LA that is a musician and a lawyer, and is very much into um, the IP rights of musicians and litigates on the intellectual property of who's is this your song, is this your the underlying tenet of your song, is this phrase, is this bass line here your theirs, or is that a universal
So important.
1 5 1 4 5 progression, the all those and he's also a fantastic musician as well. I played gigs with him when I was in
Wow.
LA. The so marrying those two things together. So it's really interesting. And I see that in a lot of very successful people is like you do something and you get really good at that. And then you either bring in something from another facet of your life, or you decide I want to play on a larger
Right.
stage.
Right. That's what I wanted to do. Because burnout's a real thing. And I didn't want to burn out. And I felt I was way too young to be done. And I didn't want to be done. I think every day is an absolute adventure on classroom earth. And I am never going to be done learning and growing and stretching and what more and challenging myself and, rising to the call, rising to the cause, rising to the occasion. So it was a really great, and I'll tell you how it came about. It wasn't like I had this giant epiphany. And what happened was COVID. I mean, the firm closed its doors. The courts shuttered. I've never seen that happen, ever. I mean, yeah, courts close, there's a storm, power goes out, but usually, there's still one judge in the building and, they figure out how to do things manually. This was complete game over for the legal profession for a while. And I thought, is this my out? Is this my off ramp? Is this it? And I started exploring what else could I do? And, serendipitously, one thing led to another. I got an email. I saw somebody post something. A friend mentioned something to me, and then boom, there it was, clear as day. Federal Indian law, go back and get your degree and move on. And that's exactly how it happened. And that's what happened. What I didn't plan on was the car hitting me. Yeah. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how did you like the play?
I think that it's obviously the accident is very was very traumatic and took a lot of diligence to get through. And I've got a question on that in just a second. But sometimes we do need some sort of a wake up call. We
Yeah.
need something to happen and to push us. I'm a big believer in the phrase that if you don't feel imposter syndrome about once every 18 months or so, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough. When you start getting comfortable in
Right.
your role, like, this is, I'm really crushing this now. I've been doing this for a while. Things are getting easier all the time. Then it's
Yeah.
so easy to lose that edge that got
Right.
us there in the first place. And
You got to be a little scared every day.
exactly. Keep pushing yourself. Feel that imposter syndrome. Um, so when you had the accident, clearly you you couldn't do anything for yourself. The mental aspect of that, because many of us, as professionals, even as entrepreneurs, we feel like we've got a lot of adversity and a lot of things that are tough. Nothing like the level you went through. But what are some of the lessons that you can give us for how did you make it through it? How did you go get from Tuesday to Wednesday? And how did that affect your identity throughout that whole time?
Well, for me, the gift of still being alive was the biggest feeling that I had. It was bigger than pain, and it was bigger than, um, not being able to do anything for myself. So in that feeling of, "Thank you, thank you, thank you, I'm still here," everything became a gift. So when they brought me food in the hospital, it was such a gift. "Oh, thank you so much." Somebody just walked in with food that someone else cooked and, shopped for and prepared and cooked and put on a tray with a napkin and a fork and a knife, and somebody brought it in and put it on my tray, and then a nurse would come and sit me up, and then someone would help me eat. Everything was a gift. And then there was this guy that came in, who had to sponge bath me. And at first I thought, I don't feel comfortable with a guy sponge bathing me, but he was so loving. He was so kind and he was so attentive, and that was his whole job. That's what he did. And he did it for everybody like they were the only person on earth that he had in front of them at that moment. His buzzer would go off, his phone would ring, he wouldn't even answer it. If he was with you, he was with you, and he took incredible care of my physical body, my skin. He made sure I didn't get sores. He made sure I got turned over. And then there was the nurse that came in with the pain medicine. And then there were the doctors that came in and the interns and everybody that came in. I was so grateful. "Oh, thank you. Thank you." People sent flowers and cards and gifts, and each one was, "Yes, you're in my life. Oh, you're my friend. Oh, yes, I love you." Things I had taken for granted. People that, I didn't feel that way about them before. I took for granted that they were my friend, and I was glad they were my friend, and I liked them. That's why they were my friend. But now it was like, "Thank you for this gift. Thank you for being with me through this. Thank you for, you know, bringing me something to brighten my day." Somebody gave me almost like a wall of fresh peonies that was extraordinary. Anyway, that is how I surrendered to the fact that this is what this is, and I'm not gonna be able to, change it. This is, and it is a gift, and I am grateful, and I am blessed, and I am lucky. I'm so lucky. Now, I'd only been married. I'm remarried. This is my second marriage. I'd only been married about 10 months, and so we were still newlyweds, and, there was my new husband coming to see me in the hospital one day. He was so cute. He got all dressed up in a suit and tie just to cheer me up, just to make it special and make it seem like it was important that he was coming to visit me. It was just such a lovely gesture. And then, of course, he had to push me in a wheelchair, and I kept teasing him. "It's a good thing we're married because you can't walk away now."
Wow, I I think all of us take for granted and and underestimate just the gift of being alive. And you've cracked the code on, like, no, that's the start with that, and then every problem that you've got kind of seems much more insignificant.
It's actually not a problem. It's an opportunity. It's like, oh, okay. It's a puzzle you get to solve. And, I wouldn't have that problem if I didn't have this life.
Amazing, amazing. Um, so when you talk to audiences today, you've got a transformational story, messages of love. What's kind of like the core thing that you want them to take away from your message as you give keynotes and so forth? What's the core thing that you want them to take away?
I would say you cannot thwart your soul's destiny. You can run, but you can't hide. And if you try, you will be on the receiving end of an escalating series of wake up calls. And it's, feels like a longing at first. And then it feels like maybe you're getting shaken. And then maybe it feels like a sledgehammer, and then maybe it feels like a car. But we all feel it. We ignore it. I ignored. I can't tell you how many wake up calls I ignored up until the one that I couldn't. But in my case, subtlety didn't work. There was a gentle longing, and there were some signs, and 12-step recovery for drinking, and I still kept thinking, I got this. I don't need help. I can do it. I can achieve. I can succeed. Blah, 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 blah. Until finally, came the ultimate knock. So my message is leap before you're pushed. waking up is not optional, only the timing is and the way is. You really must wake up to why they're truly here. And it may be as simple as you're here to feel love, or you're here to feel peace, or you're here to feel gratitude, or you're here to learn forgiveness. But whatever that is, and I also believe that our dreams are a very key ingredient to our purpose. And so we forget to dream. We forget the things that light us up and always have. And we push them aside. We get serious. That's not professional, or won't make money, this, that, and the other thing. But I really think when we cut ourselves off from our true selves, our real nature, our dreams, our heart, our soul, we're setting ourselves up for the knock, the sledgehammer, or the car.
How do you figure out your soul's destiny? We can't thwart it, but sometimes I think first of all, I don't think we sometimes listen, but if we wanted to get more in tune to that, what would you counsel somebody?
Well, I think everybody has that little voice inside that they can hear. I think as a culture, we're taught to drown it out. Eat more, shop more, do more, achieve more, buy more, have more, earn more. It's, the culture of more. So I think we're sort of taught not to pay attention to it, and it gets drummed out, but I think it's still there. And I think everybody knows their own little voice. So my first suggestion is the next time you hear it, listen to it. Don't try to argue with it. No, I can't. That's not possible. That won't work. Not now. I don't have time. I'm too busy. I'm too scared. I think listen to it. That's number one. When you hear that little voice, stop and listen to it. And instead of saying no, say yes. Okay. You don't need to know how, and you don't need to know why, but you need to get your yes back. And I think another question to ask oneself, and it's something that I still do this journal exercise almost on a daily basis. On the top of the page, I have, what would I do if I were not afraid? And I answer that. And sometimes it's really, really, really small. And sometimes it's really, really big. And when I realize what I'm not doing because I'm afraid, that's my purpose. Right then and there, bang. The things you're afraid of, that's what you're supposed to be doing.
Wow, excellent, excellent. For those that are professionals, we're very focused on our career, hopefully focused on our finances as well. Um, and that becomes a thought and a drive that's very foremost in our mind.
Mhm.
The to but and we become very, not ego in a bad way, but ego in a self sort of way. We view things from the sense of like, I'm an individual. I'm not connected to anybody else.
Mm.
How do we? What's the way that I can get back into this feeling of love and gratitude and connection? Is there a way? Is it breathing? How do I get out of my, you know I got all this stuff to do. I'm trying to start a new business, or I'm trying to make this one deal work, or I'm trying to, to figure out whether this deal can work or whatever. All these sort of things that are very much, me centric. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. I need this person to do this, and I need my tax person to do this, or whatever it is, and get back into this feeling of love and gratitude that you seem to just have effortlessly right now.
I think don't abandon yourself to do whatever it is that you're going to do. Connect to yourself. And whether you do that through the breath, through meditation, through dreaming, through journaling, through exercise, through running, swimming, however you connect to your real self, that voice within that we all have and that we all hear, connect to that and ignite that. That's your spirit. That's your spark. That's the part of you that is always alive. That's the part of you that's eternal. Connect to your spark, connect to your spirit. That's your power, that's your strength, that's your love, that's your superpower, that's your gift. And when you're connected from that place and you feel that power, and it's a different kind of power than I have power over you, or I'm your boss, or do what I say. It's a different kind of power. It's a really cool kind of power. It's a freeing power. You'll feel free when you connect to it. Then connect to others from your heart and ask for help. Help was a 4-letter word in my life until this, But now I love asking for help. Hey, I want to learn this. You seem so good at it. Could you show me how to do it? How did you learn it? Same kind of questions that you're asking to benefit your listeners. You're doing incredible service by asking, for help on behalf of your listeners. So I ask for help now. I'm always wanting to learn. I'm always wanting to grow. Everybody's a teacher. Everybody's got something that they're doing beautifully that I can learn from. So I connect to myself. I don't abandon myself. I don't not listen to myself. I get a feeling. I follow it. I don't abandon. I use it in yoke. I've got both in a yoke, and they're pulling in the same direction now. Logic and intuition have made friends in my life in a very powerful way. So I would tell people to remember yourself, your spark, your heart, your dreams. Don't turn on yourself. Don't abandon yourself. Don't harm yourself in the pursuit of your desires and your goals. And always remember the gift that it is just to be alive and just to be here, and treat everything like an adventure. Just enjoy even the hardships and even the difficulties. They are also an adventure. We're climbing the mountain, and sometimes it's rough, and sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's raining, and sometimes it's cold, but it's all the climb. It's all the adventure. We all have our own Everest.
Wow. Wow. Connect with yourself, listen to yourself. And I love logic and intuition are yoked together. That's just such great insight. Okay. I always ask my guests this, as we move into like the rapid fire section towards the end of the show. What's one common piece of career or financial advice that you think is completely wrong? What's our conventional wisdom that's currently wrong on something today?
When people say you can't do that, or that won't work, or don't do that, or that's not a good idea, never override somebody's fire. If you've got fire and somebody tells you that's a bad idea, that won't work, don't do it, don't listen to them. Listen to you. You are the engineer of your life. Listen to yourself. Sure, take advice, but don't let anybody tell you you can't, it won't work, don't do it, it's a bad idea. They don't know what you know about yourself and your mission here.
Wow.
If I
Okay. Pay
told
it
you how many
forward.
times, Dr. Matt, people told me that'll never work, you can't do it, that's impossible. Yeah, watch.
Oh, and with startups also, we see that as well. Like, well, every startup is a crazy idea. If it was just completely a non-brainer, it would have already been invented, right? That's just a kind of we need a little bit of craziness to kind of
Absolutely.
make it work.
That's your gift. We're all a little piece of the puzzle. And if you don't do your piece of the puzzle can't get completed. So your crazy idea is a brilliant idea.
Awesome. Okay. Teach every professional, one lesson on money or one lesson on career, pay it forward. What are you going to teach them?
On money, I would say, when you're lying there on the street, money doesn't love you. Money, even on the dollar bill, it says, "In God we trust." The dollar bill tells you itself, "Don't believe in me." Money, it is currency. It's necessary. It's important, but it doesn't wrap your arms around you when you're dying. So don't make money your God.
Excellent. Excellent. Oh my gosh. I took so many notes today. Susan, this has just been fantastic. Some of the things I wrote down: connect with yourself, connect with your spark, listen to yourself. I love logic and intuition are yoked together. I think we should all probably write on a 3x5 index card and keep on our desk. You can't thwart your soul's destiny. I think leap before you're pushed is just some fantastic advice. Also, to avoid burnout, play on a bigger stage. That's usually what we think of the opposite. It's like, oh, I need to go smaller. No, play on a bigger stage. You're burned out because you're not pushing yourself. That's just. And then I think probably the one thing that I will be writing on a 3x5 index card, which I do keep on my desk and I review them, every morning to get myself in the right mindset to tackle the day, is don't underestimate the gift of being alive. Susan, thank you so much for all this super valuable insight. How can people get in touch with you?
I have a website. It's my name, SusanFilan.com. It's F as in Frank, ILAN as in Nancy, SusanFilan.com. My cell, 203-948-7418. I'd love to hear from you. And my email is my first initial S and my last name, Filan, @gmail.com.
Fantastic. Susan, It's been wonderful. Great talking to you. Great talking to you today. Thank you so much for this super valuable advice.
Thank you, Dr. Matt, for the incredible service you provide.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, everybody, we'll see you next time on Thrive and Achieve, where professionals help professionals thrive in their career and achieve financial success. Have a great day, everybody.